second method. I said earlier, there's a second method that doesn't require you finding b first. Although there's a limitation to this method, and that will be explained in the process of solving the question. This method requires that you understand how divisions of polynomials work and how it can be compared to undefined value in this case. Now to the question. It says b is a constant in the function above. If x equals -3 is a value for which the function is undefined. We know what it means for a function to be undefined. That is, the denominator must be equal to 0. And for it to be equal to 0, x would have to be -3. Let's write out the denominator. X squared minus x minus b equals 0. For you to get it to 0, or for you to equate it to 0, x has to equal to -3. I know this part of the question which says which of these following is a factor of x squared minus x minus b. This value is the same as this denominator. And when you talk about factors in polynomials, we're talking about values that will divide a bigger polynomial without a remainder. We already know b is 12. And to better explain this, let's just change b to 12. You have x squared minus x minus 12 instead of b. And the factors to this expression are actually x plus 3 and x minus 4. In this case, if you divide x squared minus x minus 12 by x plus 3, you will get x minus 4 without a remainder. Likewise, if you take x squared minus x minus 12 and divide it by x minus 4, it would give you x plus 3 without a remainder. We're not going details into divisions in polynomial because the focus at this point is just on undefined value. But we need to understand the concept behind factors. When you divide a bigger polynomial by a smaller polynomial and it doesn't give you a remainder, that's a factor. So when we're asked about the factor in this case, we can actually do it without finding b. Now, in division of polynomial, rather than do this division, there's another way of knowing a factor of a polynomial. We already know these two are factors. Let's use that other method to prove that they are factors. First, you take the factor and equate it to 0. You can use x plus 3, you can use x minus 4. Let's use x minus 4 in this case. We used x plus 3 in the first method. You take x minus 4 and we equate it to 0. You find the value for x. X equals, you add 4 to both sides. That's standard in math. You can also say -4 crosses the equals sign and turns to +4. So x is +4. If you take this value for x, which was gotten by equating this factor to 0, and insert it into this expression, it will result in 0. That's also a way of identifying a factor under polynomials. Let's just do this. We take x as 4 and insert it into this expression and see if it results to 0. You have the expression as x squared minus x minus 12. We have x as 4. That means we'll replace x with 4. So rather than have x squared, you'll be having 4 squared minus 4, then minus 12. 4 squared is 4 times 4, that's 16, minus 4 minus 12. 16 minus 4 is 12. Then you still have minus 12. 12 minus 12 equals 0. So apart from dividing, you can also know a factor by taking a value, equating to 0, getting the x value, and inserting it into the main expression. The main expression is called the dividend. What is dividing it is called the divisor. The answer is the quotient. And when it's a non-factor, we have a remainder. Now we see that if we equate a factor to 0 and find the x value, then insert the x value into the main expression, you would get 0. Now we go to how it relates to undefined value. The undefined value in this case is when x is -3, the denominator, which is same as the expression we're asked to find the factor of, is 0 if we take x as -3. How this now relates to the undefined value is, the question says the undefined value for this function is x equals -3. That means if you take x as -3, the denominator will be 0. And note that the denominator is same as the expression we're told to find the factor of. And you know, when you take a value for x and insert it into the equation and it results to 0, that value for x can be used to create a factor. Based on this, where we equated the factor to 0 and get the x value for it. Now, to get back the factor, you have to take the number back to the left to meet with x. You now have x minus 4 equals 0. Ignore the equals to 0. And you can then take x minus 4 as a factor, as in this case. So if it's stated that x equals -3, can turn this expression into 0. That means if we take it from undefined value to divisions in polynomials, we can create a factor from this. So all we need to do is to take this -3 to the left to meet x. So we'll be having x plus 3 equals 0. -3 crosses the equals sign and turns to +3. Similar to this, we can ignore the equals to 0 and take it that x plus 3 is a factor of this expression. Taking out the factor from this, the factor is x plus 3, which is b in this case. The limitation of this method is that this might not actually be in the options. In the options, you might actually have x minus 4. And in that case, you might have to find b first. That's just the limitation. But in this case, since you see the relationship between the undefined value and factors of a polynomial, you just take this x equals -3 and you take the -3 to the left to meet x. Then you now have x plus 3. And that can just be done in 1 second, knowing that x plus 3 is the answer. Hope you understand.